Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. 7th day of September now, 2022. Up first, we've got the Southeast Alaska Weather Zone Realignment Notice here that takes effect September 13th, and that's for the National Weather Service Juneau Forecast Office. And a few notes here: affects public and fire zones, but not marine zones at all, and should be pretty transparent to most users. And you can see the new zone outline there in the upper right hand corner, showing the map of the southeast coast there, and uses borough and census boundaries to help eliminate overwarning of National Weather Service alerts across southeast Alaska. And if you want to know more information, you can go to the website at juneau.weather@noaa.gov for more detailed information, or if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Again, that goes into effect September 13th, only for the public and fire weather zones. And on to the warning chart here. There was a flood warning due to the heavy rains they had overnight last night into early today around Cordova and into northeast Prince William Sound, or the eastern North Gulf Coast area there. For flood warning out today, for the Copper River Highway, along the Copper River Highway in the Cordova area. That's where the flood warning was at. And that's out until, I believe, 4:30 or 5 p.m. So it's almost ended there. And then up to around the Valdez area, flood advisory out there, northeast Prince William Sound near Valdez, for minor flooding of low-lying areas. And again, that's out until 4:30 or 5. So just about over there, with the rainfall diminishing a lot from what it was earlier and overnight last night. But there's still a flood watch out for the Susitna Valley through Saturday morning until noon Saturday for the Susitna Valley for possible flooding due to the recent heavy rains there, and also a flood watch out for the Copper River Basin, and that's through 4 p.m. Saturday through the afternoon Saturday, again for possible flooding due to the heavy rains they've seen, especially over the southern part of the Copper River Basin. And taking a look at some of the rainfall amounts, 48-hour amounts here, starting out in Prince William Sound. You could see Portage about a little over 2 inches there. Alyeska had about 1 1/3 inches, but the real heavy rainfall was across the Sound. Valdez picking up 3 1/2 inches, and then around Cordova, anywhere from a little over 6 inches to almost 12 inches of rain in 24 hours there. Of course, that's what prompted the flood warning out there. And then I think that's Thompson Pass picked up nearly 5 inches of rain, and again the heavy rain, that's what prompted the flood advisory for the Valdez area. And up in the Copper River Basin, anywhere from 2/3 to nearly 1 inch in the central areas around Gulkana, heavier into the mountainous areas there. But down to the south, heavier rainfall amounts you can see anywhere from 1 1/3 to 4 3/4 inches falling down in the southern in toward the mountains there. And even up to the north around Paxson, seeing over 1 inch of rain in the 48-hour period, and lighter amounts off to the east a little bit, only 1/2 inch or so. Same thing over the, or off to the west there, same thing over the eastern areas. And then moving on to the Madanuska Valley, lighter rainfall amounts, but still pretty good for 48 hours. 1 2/3 inches, looks like falling around the Willow area. Talkeetna picking up about 1 7/10 inch. And anywhere from 3/4 inch to a little over 1 inch there around Wasilla, and about 6/10 at Palmer. And then moving to the Kenai Peninsula, not too bad in the rainfall amounts here, anywhere from 2/10 inch to 1/2 inch. You can see just 2/10 inch at Homer and about 1/3 inch at Kenai. Seward picked up 1 1/2 inches. That's pretty garden variety for that area for 48-hour rainfall amount. So moving on to Anchorage area, you can see Point McKenzie there had about 1.5 inches, and the airport, Anchorage International Airport, about 1 inch even, not much different, a little less there at Merrill Field. And then into the Chugats, lighter amounts, anywhere from 1/4 inch to 3/4 of an inch. And now finally, satellite imagery showing that front moving eastward and weakening quite rapidly as it runs into a ridge of high pressure over the west coast, or over the Panhandle and over Canada there. And rainfall amounts really dropping off here in the last 12 hours from what they were the previous 12 hours. But coming in from the west, there are several surges of moisture bringing more light rain into the Cook Inlet, Mananuska Valley area, as well as the Kuskokwim Valley, and that extending out to the Yukon Delta and into Norton Sound. And then you can see the next system out to the west, pushing clouds into the southwest Bering Sea and as far east as Atka Island, at least the mid and high level clouds. Kind of a break there over the Pribilofs to the eastern Aleutians, and some clouds and moisture, but nothing too terribly heavy over the Alaska Peninsula. And rolling this again, you can see how narrow that front becomes when it pushes in toward the north coast of the Panhandle area there, and really breaking up. The moderate rain ended now, even along the North Gulf Coast, but some light rain starting to push into the northern Panhandle. Pretty nice down to the south today, and more rain with a trough into the Alaska Peninsula, and then a couple of troughs spreading moisture in that westerly flow across southern Alaska. Surges of rain and showers coming in. Unsettled, kind of cloudy, showery, damp weather in the central interior, dry along much of the Arctic coast. And next system pushes rain into the eastern Aleutians. Light rain, fog, and drizzle, bulk of the moisture to the north, except along the frontal boundary, dragging through the west central Aleutians, a little bit heavier there. And still starting to dry out over south central Alaska. Most of the moisture now hung up along the Alaska Range into the Kuskokwim Valley, but rainfall rates diminishing even over the eastern interior. And the North Gulf Coast, still some light rain, fog, and drizzle continuing through the night tonight, but that's diminishing considerably. Just some scattered showers over the northern Panhandle after maybe some periods of light rain this evening, and basically dry over the central and southern southeast coast. Outlook for tomorrow, that next system rainfall makes landfall during the afternoon hours along the Yukon Delta coast and locally the Kuskokwim Delta coast, and some moisture into Bristol Bay, warm front rains, fog, and drizzle into the Alaska Peninsula. And again, with periods of rain as that front drags across the central Aleutians, Adak and Atka. Rain and wind, Pribilof Islands, winds kicking up along the southwest coast and Nunivak Island. But St. Lawrence Island staying dry through the day, while the Seward Peninsula, maybe some clearings showing up over south central Alaska, kind of a break in between systems. Most of the moisture down over Kodiak Island, showers on the North Gulf Coast, showers up in the Alaska Range. Could be a dry, partly sunny, at least for a part of the day tomorrow, over Anchorage, Palmer, Cook Inlet, and the Kenai Peninsula areas. Areas of light rain up over the Kobuk, Koyukuk valleys and the eastern Brooks Range. And the outlook for Sunday, that front pushes onto the southwest coast. Now an occluded front there. Winds kind of gusty ahead of the front, but nothing serious. Periods of rain. Again, rain won't be all that heavy, so no flooding concerns, at least at this point in time, as that pushes in. But another round of wet, breezy conditions coming in to the areas from the southern Seward Peninsula all the way down across Bristol Bay to the Alaska Peninsula. Rain changing to showers for the eastern Aleutians. Rain, fog, and gusty winds for the Pribilofs, maybe up to 25 miles an hour or so, drying out over the western Aleutians. And rain on the increase over south central Alaska throughout the day, rain and showers, but just light rain amounts. And same thing for Prince William Sound, scattered showers for the eastern North Gulf Coast, sunshine for the southeast coast with pretty nice temperatures, and also some sun north of the Alaska Range, mid and upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country up to the Yukon Flats, areas of fog and low clouds for the North Slope and Arctic coast. Lows tonight, upper 40s and near 50 for the Panhandle, upper 30s Copper River Basin, lower to mid 40s Kuskokwim Valley and Bristol Bay, mid to upper 40s elsewhere. And highs tomorrow, lower to mid 50s South Central Alaska, as just about everywhere, mid 50s for the Bristol Bay area, near 60 for Kodiak, and mid 60s over the southern southeast coast, mid to upper 50s to the north. Lows, upper 30s or mid 30s for the Copper River Basin, otherwise in the 40s to near 50. And same thing for the Panhandle, followed by highs. Again, mid 60s, warmest south where will be the most sunshine, cooler north, but still in the mid 50s. 50s over the remainder of southern Alaska. Up to the north, not much change from what we've seen. Mid to upper 30s for the Lows, Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, otherwise in the 40s. Highs, 50s, except upper 30s, central Arctic coast, lower 40s elsewhere, followed by lows 30s now down into the central interior. and mid to upper 30s for the Arctic coast and North Slope, followed by highs a little warmer, near 60 for the Fairbanks area. Out to the west, lows tonight 40s, lower 50s the Aleutians, highs in the 50s just about everywhere. Lows again back in the 40s to near 50, followed by highs in the mid to upper 50s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather Saturday morning, IFR from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast. And along the Alaska Range there, Central Alaska Range, actually about Isabel Pass over and to the west, down the range to just north of Lake Iliamna, and southeast Copper River Basin down to just west of Elfin Cove, IFR, some VFR over the central panhandle, some IFR along the southwest coast and the Bering Strait with a bigger area of IFR, Pribilofs, and much of the Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And for the afternoon time frame, there we go, IFR not quite as extensive there north of the Brooks Range, especially on the west side. They're breaking out some VFR on the western Arctic coast north of Cape Lisburne. IFR persists though for the eastern North Slope and Arctic coast. Marginal VFR right on down to the Yukon River with some areas of VFR or marginal VFR down to the Yukon River. Areas of VFR through the central interior, even St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, and Cook Inlet, Copper River Basin improving tomorrow, kind of a break coming through. And Kodiak Island maybe, but some IFR down towards Sitkinak there and maybe AKwx. But marginal VFR for the northern panhandle, North Gulf Coast, VFR southern southeast coast. Next batch of IFR coming into the southwest coast, St. Matthew Island and Togiak Bay, on down to the Alaska Peninsula and into the west central Aleutians. And then that area shifts northeastward with the fronts kind of dragging into the Fox Islands there and just past the Pribilof Sunday morning. IFR on the increase there right up to the Kuskokwim Mountains over the southwest interior, St. Lawrence Island. More IFR sliding on up into Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast, Resurrection Bay. But northern Cook Inlet and the Mananuska-Susitna Valley into the Copper River Basin, VFR. Narrow band of marginal VFR along the Alaska Range and some good VFR in the central interior, IFR, central eastern Arctic coast. And for Sunday afternoon, IFR, eastern Arctic coast, VFR for the North Slope and part of the Brooks Range, especially the central and eastern areas, right on down across the Tanana Valley to the Alaska Range, and you get some marginal VFR on the southern slopes with IFR on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, but eastern Cook Inlet right on up into the southern Susitna Valley and part of the Mananuska Valley, VFR extending into the Copper River Basin. IFR for the North Gulf Coast, again, Resurrection Bay on up into Passage Canal, Valdez, eastward to Yakutat. Band of IFR there from the south side of the Seward of Norton Bay, Norton Sound, southward to Togiak, Alaska Peninsula. Then areas of VFR with some areas of marginal VFR and an area or two of IFR out over the Bering Sea. VFR for the southeast coast Sunday afternoon. And for Anaktuvuk and Atigan, IFR for the day tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. Trending toward marginal VFR at times. Rainy, marginal VFR to VFR. Could go either way on all those passes throughout the entire day. Not too bad, really. And for windy, occasionally marginal as well. And Isabel, marginal VFR, except the north entrance VFR. And for Mentasta, VFR, but some marginal VFR possible on the southern approach. Tanita, occasionally marginal. Portage, trending from marginal VFR early to VFR in the afternoon, optimistically. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR, improving to VFR in the afternoon. Freezing levels about 4,000 feet there over mainland Alaska tomorrow morning. And pretty good gradient there across the southeast coast from 6,000 to 12,000 feet. And about 6,000 to 10,000 feet, southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Icing, a lot of moisture coming across the Bering Sea again, so with that, in advance of the front, moving into the Pribilofs, could be some considerable moderate rime icing above 7,000 feet, and maybe some more of that in advance of the cold front dragging across just west of Adak. Otherwise, isolated moderate there across Bristol Bay, the Aleutian Range, Kodiak Island, right on up into the North Gulf Coast, and possible icing there in the central and northeast interior. Jet stream, northwest winds 80 knots, southern Cook Inlet, southwest 100 knots into the Panhandle, northern Panhandle. 9,000 feet, good westerly flow across the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, lighter westerly flow across the Gulf into the Panhandle, and 40 to 55 knot winds blowing around that low center in the Bering Sea, lighter winds to the east. Considerable moderate chop, Alaska Peninsula to Adak, Shimian at 2, surface to 5,000 feet.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. He is here and has been here many times to talk to us about weather satellites and how those can help Alaskans understand our weather, how we can do better detection, keep more people safe from things even like volcanic ash. But today, Eric, you're going to talk to us a little bit more about weather satellites and how that can keep Alaskans safe and protect our property from wildfire, right?
That's right, Dave. Today's topic is where there's smoke, there's fire. And thanks for having us back again to Alaska
Anytime.
Weather. Well, weather satellites have a lot of different instruments on them. It turns out that the electromagnetic spectrum has a lot going on in it, and only one part of that is visible light, what we see.
Right.
Weather satellites, of course, report that. Today's topic is wildfires.
Okay.
There are some people who say that in Alaska in the summertime you don't have severe weather. These people are usually from Oklahoma or somewhere, and F5 tornadoes tend not to occur in Alaska.
Right.
People have also said what we do have in the summer. What is Alaska's severe summer weather can be hydrology,
right,
flash flood and erosion in the mountains and things like that, and fires, wildfires.
Absolutely.
Those were here in 2004, certainly remember that. We've got an example here from 2014. Now it was a quiet season overall, but in May, down on the Kenai Peninsula, we had a wildfire on the Funny River, and this is a satellite image from a polar orbiter that went right over Alaska, and we can see the plume of smoke coming out of that fire on the Kenai, curling down. It's caught in the wind. It goes down toward Kodiak Island, curves around. You can see it circulating around a low-pressure system that's in the Gulf of Alaska.
It was a beautiful picture.
Oh my gosh.
Except there was a fire.
There's a fire there. The nice thing is with this satellite image, you can tell where the fire origin is, where the smoke is coming from. And it's a color image. We're looking at the wavelength spectrum of about 0.4 to 0.7 micrometers or microns. That's what the human eye would see. If you were riding on the satellite and looked down, you could see this kind of an image. Right. So that's pretty nice. But it turns out there's more to the electromagnetic spectrum than just visible light. Okay. You've heard of infrared, ultraviolet, that kind of thing. If we move into longer wavelengths, let's go to one specifically, 3.7 microns.
Okay, 3.7.
Why worry about that one? Okay. Well, we've got an example here. 3.7, it turns out, happens to be very sensitive to a certain temperature range, temperatures where fires burn. Okay. And so we've got an example zoomed in a little more from that same Funny River fire down on the Kenai Peninsula, and we can see that you get up into a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit, and that's where the colors are. We can see there on the Funny River fire to the west and to the east, almost a horseshoe shape there, is not only we're seeing where the fire is in a general sense, but specifically where it's the active fire
that is where
front.
it's burning right now.
And it's 3.7 microns is the important temperature there.
Okay.
That's right.
So this is really important to firefighters on the ground, people that are making plans and directing the firefighters on where they need to go and cut the trenches and keep people safe.
You know it. Wow. If you want to fight that fire, you got to know where it is. Okay. You got to know the leading edge. We've also got a movie loop, nothing quite like animating it in time. Yeah. You can see the fire spreading out over time with a succession of film or a succession of images. Now this is one channel, 3.7 micron. You know, we looked at that color smoke image before. Right. And that's actually a red, a green, and a blue. That's how you get color imagery. What if you took 3 different wavelengths in the infrared? You went from like 2.2 micron, 1.5 micron, up to 3.7. You mix them together, you get this other kind of color image, which is even a better way to sharply bring out the details of where that leading edge of the fire is. Okay. You'll note, though, in the infrared, guess what? We don't see the smoke. That's too bad. And on these movie loops, you can see the clouds go by. These channels can't see through clouds. The lesson is there's no one perfect solution. You got to have the visible, got to have some of that infrared single 3.7 channel, some of the infrared mixing to help get a different perspective. Another one, we've talked before about a fun channel called the day-night band.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and in Alaska in the winter, it's great. We've got all this darkness. The day-night band is so sensitive to seeing light. You can see features that otherwise aren't available. Now in Alaska, when you have a forest fire, it tends to be light out all the time.
Right.
It's our summer. But we can go down south to the Rim Fire in California in 2013. Now, okay, it was in California, not Alaska, but Alaskan crews went down to fight that fire, so we can talk about it here on Alaska Weather. Here we have a 3.7 micron channel shot of the rim fire, again kind of a horseshoe shape, showing that active fire front down there. And then we'll look again to the day-night band, the visible light, and then you can see how the fire is all bright. You can see the active fire front and actually the city lights over there too. Turns out that the cities, while they're active in a social sense, are not really hot in a fire sense. So they don't show up in the 3.7 micron. They're not hot like a fire is, but the fire in the cities look the same from a visible light perspective. And a fun thing here too is that we can see the smoke plume going north from the rim fire on the day-night band. So if we were ever to have, like in 2004 in Alaska, you get dark at night, we still had an active fire season that year. That was, you know, that really bad year. The day-night band didn't exist then, but if we had fires now in August, we could use it then. The lesson here is weather satellites, they offer many different wavelengths of light. Some are used for different purposes, and some of these we just looked at tonight are especially helpful here in Alaska to find and to track the behavior of these wildfires so the crews can go out there and do their jobs.
Sure, sure. So a satellite toolbox for the firefighting crews and the fire weather forecasters, and it just underlines how important satellites are, especially for Alaska and our mission for the National Weather Service to protect life and property, and also to enhance the national economy. So wonderful stuff there, Eric. And people can look at pictures like this anytime by going to gina.alaska.edu. You'll find images there all around Alaska at various times of the year, and not just about fire weather, but volcanic ash and smoke and anything else you want to check out. They're always beautiful pictures and always interesting to look at no matter what time of the day. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We appreciate it and welcome you back anytime. For this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder. See you next time. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at Saturday's coastal water forecast there for the south coast. Northwest winds 20 to 25 knots. And for the north coast, west winds 15 knots. Northern inner channels, southerlies at 15 knots. For Stevens Passage, northwest winds at 10 knots. And Clarence Strait looking at a northwest wind of 15 knots. And then for Sunday, kind of a variable wind pattern for the central and northern inside waters for at about 10 knots with pretty slight seas at 2 feet. Clarence Strait, northwest winds 15 knots with 2-foot seas, and north winds 20 to 25 knots. Again, strongest Prince of Wales Island, small craft advisories. And for the north coast, west to northwest winds 15 to 20 knots, seas 5 to 7 feet. Prince William Sound on Saturday, south winds 20 knots, seas 4 feet. North Gulf Coast, southwest winds 15 to 20 knots, seas 8 to 9 feet. Small craft advisories for the Barren Islands, south winds 25 knots. Just 15 knots south winds for Kamishak Bay, but small craft advisories for Cook Inlet for south to southwest winds at 30 knots. Lighter winds for northern Cook Inlet on Sunday, variable at 15. Lighter also south of the Foreland, south winds down to 20 knots. Small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, south winds 25 knots. North Gulf Coast, south winds 20 to 25 knots, and a southeast wind at 20 knots for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island for Saturday, southwest winds 20 to 25 knots. And the Alaska Peninsula, winds will be southwest at 25 knots. South winds 20 knots for Bristol Bay. And for Sunday, Bristol Bay, small craft advisories, south winds 25 knots with 6-foot seas. And the Alaska Peninsula, small craft advisories also, southwest winds 30 knots with seas around 10 feet. Kodiak Island, south to west winds 25 knots, seas 7 feet. And for the eastern Aleutians tomorrow, small craft advisories, southwest winds 30 knots, seas 10 feet. Gale warnings for the central Aleutians, southwest winds up to 35 knots. Gale warnings also for Amchitka Island for southwest winds 35 knots. Kiskadashimia, west winds at 30. And for Sunday, western Aleutians, west winds 25 knots. Central areas, southwest to west, 25 to 30 knots. And the eastern Aleutians, west-southwest winds at 25 to 30 knots, seas right around 10 feet. For the southwest coast, southeast winds 20 to 25 knots, strongest along the Yukon Delta coast. Small craft advisories for St. Matthew Island, southeast winds 25 knots. And for the Pribilofs, southwest winds 30 knots with 9-foot seas. St. Lawrence Island looking at a southwest or southeast wind at 20 knots, southwest at 20 for Norton Sound with 4-foot seas. And for Sunday, for Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island, small craft advisories, southeast winds 25 knots, and Yukon Delta coast south at 15, Kuskokwim Delta coastline, small craft advisories, as well as the Pribilofs for both zones there, looking at southwest winds at 25 knots, southwest winds 20 knots for St. Matthew Island. Up along the Arctic coast from Cape Thompson all the way to Demarcation Point, winds will be east at 20 knots with seas running 6 to 10 feet. And from Cape Thompson to Wales, southwest winds 15 knots with 4-foot seas. And for Sunday, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, light east winds at 10 knots, seas down to 4 to 5 feet. Central and western Arctic coast all the way down to Cape Thompson, east winds at 15 knots, seas 4 to 5 feet. Cape Thompson to Wales, small craft advisories for east winds at 25 knots, with seas running at about 5 feet. And for tonight again, diminishing rain continues for the North Gulf Coast, but light rain, fog, drizzle continues from Prince William Sound into the northern panhandle. There will be mostly scattered showers out front, just completely washes out as it pushes into the ridge of high pressure. Stays dry over the central and southern panhandle. Areas of rain or showers from the northeast interior, eastern Arctic coast, all the way down to Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. Next system pushing rain up to the southwest coast, increasing breezy conditions tomorrow afternoon, as well as the Alaska Peninsula. Front drags across the central Aleutians for more rain there. And a break over south central Alaska at some point in the day. Should be dry with maybe a few sun breaks, otherwise kind of showery for the North Gulf Coast. And for Sunday, next system pushes rain into the western and southwest interior, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island. Clouds and rain increase throughout the day over south central Alaska, as well as Prince William Sound, sunny for the Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.